Henry Wadsworth Longfellow.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive that remembers that famous day and year.
And he said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang the lantern aloft in the belfry arch as a signal light of the North Church tower. One if by land, two if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up into arm.
And he said good night with muffled oar and silently rowed to the Charlestown shore. Just as the moon rose over the bay, where swinging wide at her moorings lay, the Somerset, British man of war, a phantom ship with each mast and spar, crossed the moon like a prison bar, and a huge black hulk that was magnified by its own reflection in the tide.
Meanwhile, his friend through alley and street wanders and watches with eager ears, until in the silence he hears the muster of men at the barrack door, the sound of arms and the tramp of feet, and the measured tread of the grenadiers marching down to their vault on the shore.
Then he climbed the tower of the old North Church by the wooden stairs with stealthy tread to the belfry chamber overhead, and startled the pigeons from their perch on the somber rafters round him made masses and moving shapes of shade. Masses by the trembling ladder, steep and tall, to the highest window in the wall, where he paused to listen and look down a moment on the roofs of the town and the moonlight flowing over all.
Beneath in the churchyard lay the dead in their night encampment on the hill, wrapped in silence so deep and still that he could feel like a sentinel's tread, the watchful night wind as it went, creeping along from tent to tent and seeming to whisper, all is well. A moment only fuels the spell of the place and the hour and the secret dread of the lonely belfry and the dead. For suddenly, all his thoughts are bent by a shadowy something far away, where the river widens to meet the bay, a line of black that bends and floats in the rising tide like a bridge of boats.
Meanwhile, impatient to mount and ride, booted and spurred with a heavy stride, on the opposite shore walked Paul Revere. Ahem, and he patted his horse's side. Now gazed at the landscape far and near, then impetuous stamped the earth and turned and tightened his saddle girth. But mostly he watched the belfry tower of the old North Church as it rose above the graves on the hill, lonely and spectral and somber and still. And lo, as he looks on the belfry's height,
A glimmer.
A glimmer, and then a gleam of light. He springs to his saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes till full on his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns.
A hurry of hoops.
A hurry of hooves in the village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath in the pebbles and passing a spark. Struck out by that steed flying fearless and fleet. That was all, and yet through the gloom and the light, a fate of a nation was riding that night. And that spark, struck out by that steed in his flight, kindled the land into flame with its heat.
He has left the village.
He has left the village and mounted the steed.
And beneath him. And beneath him.
And beneath him, tranquil and broad and deep, is the mystic meeting the ocean tide. And under the alders that skirt its edge, soft and solemn,
Loud on the ledge.
soft on the sands and loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he fled.
Mother. It was 12.
It was 12 by the village clock when he crossed the bridge into Medford Town. When he crossed the bridge into Medford Town. When he heard the crowing of the cock and the barking of the farmer's dog.
And felt the damp.
Of the river fog that rises after the sun goes down.
It was 1 by the village clock when he galloped into Lexington. He saw the gilded weathercock swim in the moonlight as he passed. And the window house, meeting house windows, blank and bare, gaze at him with a spectral glare, as if they already stood aghast at the bloody work they would look upon.
It was 2. It was 2.
It was 2 by the village clock when he galloped it. When he came to the bridge in Concord town.
You heard the bleeding.
And he heard the bleating of the flock and the twittering of the birds in the trees, and felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadows brown.
And one was safe.
And one was safe in his sleep in his bed.
Who at the bridge would be first to fall?
Who at the bridge would be first to fall?
Who that day?
Who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball?
Okay.
You know the rest in the books you have read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball from behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again. Under the trees at the turn of the road, and only pausing to fire and load.
Gracie.
So through the night went Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm. To every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear.
A voice.
A voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that should echo forevermore. For born of the night wind of the past, through all our history to the last, the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will awaken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere.